Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me while I work this afternoon. So I'm going to be working on inking Age of Night, Chapter 23, page 10. This is the same page that I worked on penciling last week. At this point, you can see I have the pencils all completed and I have the lettering all completed. There's nothing really going on in the lettering here in the actual word balloons that's like spoilery, so I didn't bother to mask them this time. But if it's something plot sensitive, I'll usually mask them. So now I'm going to start inking. I usually start by using my little nib pen for the background inking. The first couple things I'm going to work on are some of these architectural elements. So I'm also going to need my straight edge, which is this lovely million-year-old plastic triangle that I have. So I have my little pot of ink right out of frame. Dip my pen in it, knock some of the extra ink off, and that's how I'm going to start. It's always a challenge with doing any of this stuff with tools to not drag my hand or the tool or anything else through the wet lines as I go. So I have to be very methodical about the order I do everything in, and I can only do a little bit at a time, and then I gotta let it dry, and then I gotta come back. Oh, I went out of frame. Good job. Starting off strong here. All right. So that first set of parallel lines is done, and I'm going to clean off the side of my triangle because that has ink on it from my pen, and I don't want to be dragging that all over the place. Bring it down to this panel. Try to work in some areas where I'm not going to drag it through any of the lines that I just inked. I'm going to give those a chance to dry. All these little itty bitty lines. Oh, and this one up in the corner here. Boop. There aren't too many of them on the bottom tier of panels. Scoot this up so you can see, and I'll try not to knock my microphone over like I did last week. Don't, or bump into the camera like I just did. Top of that door frame in there. All right. All of that is going to have to dry. Let's see. These lines are probably okay at this point for me to come in here. Hang on tight. I'm flipping it around all over the place. Don't get seasick. All right. So that's all of the lines in that first panel. So while I'm waiting on some of this other stuff to dry, I can start working on more of the background textures for that first panel there. So in that first panel, I usually start with just doing the little, these are all stone buildings. So we're going to start with all the little dots, which, yeah, it takes a little while. It makes a nice stone texture effect to do the little dots all over the place, though. It's kind of meditative, too. Like, it's really easy when you're doing something like this to just kind of zone out. So if I get really quiet while I'm doing this, somebody just poke me, okay? Which is why if you're watching and you want to write me a question or a comment or just chit chat about whatever, I'm more than happy to answer questions or respond to commentary or whatever else. And it doesn't even have to be about what I'm doing. It can be anything whatsoever while I'm doing all these tiny little dots. I look over at the screen occasionally while I'm doing this to see if any comments have popped up. This type of effect is what's really fun to look at and when I do a time lapse. Because then you just see all of a sudden like little bugs popping up all over the place. It's really fun. Real time, it's probably less riveting. Somebody left a comment. Oh my gosh, yay. Too quiet equals poke. Yes, absolutely. If I start zoning out, just be like, hey, you there? You still awake? Or are you sleep stippling? Which is what this technique is called. Stippling, making lots of tiny itty bitty dots with ink. It is the whole entire second day of spring today. So exciting. I actually saw my first robin of the season, although it was not alone. There were actually 2 robins in the tree outside my kitchen window. I was very excited about that. Even though there's still, lots of snow on the ground here because I live way northern Maine. Yeah, it is really meditative. I zone out really hard when I'm doing this sometimes. I like doing these different background textures. It's easy to just kind of relax. All right, so that's all of the stone texture there. But because this is night, I can't just leave it with the light texture. I also have to give it a little bit of shading because this whole chapter takes place at night, so everything's dark. Then we have these hatching lines to not only provide depth, but as you will see when I do the next plane of this object, they also help to describe the different planes of the background. So this is like the inside of the door frame. So it's these short, mostly horizontal lines. I'm out of frame. Gosh darn it. Actually, darken that up a little bit down at the bottom there. All right, and then going this way, the wall is going to have vertical lines, so that'll help to distinguish between the door frame and the wall as being 2 different surfaces making a corner. So I do those little guidelines first just to make sure that my long hatching lines don't start going all wonky on me. Just gives me a nice little anchor. In that section, it's not all going to be quite that dark. It's a little bit darker down toward the bottom. Periodically go in and reload my pen here. Move around over here a little bit. Just gotta shake it up every once in a while just to keep myself from getting bored. I'm gonna do these little short lines up here. All right, I see there's another comment. I'm going to have to look at it and actually read it in a second here. Just a second. Just a second. I'm almost done with this part. There we go. All right, so now you can see how having this series of hatching lines going in this direction and this other series of hatching lines going in the other direction helps to make it look like it is two separate surfaces that are meeting at a corner instead of just being one flat surface with a random line in it for no reason. This is all going to be black, so I just put the little X's to remind myself that is spot black. All right, comment. Oh, does the pen ever rip the paper? So when the pen nib is brand new, it's super duper sharp. And I actually have to try to spend a little bit of time on working on scrap paper because it will tear up the paper a little bit. There's a couple different ways that messy scrap paper over here. If you're pulling the nib in the direction that it's designed to be pulled, then it won't really damage the paper. It'll slide along it. If you try to push toward the point, then you're much more likely to catch the fibers of the paper and not just rip the paper, but also have the pen nib catch and ink splatter all over the place. Also, the quality of your paper, like if your paper is heavier or if it's toothier or smoother. I use a Bristol board that's a smooth surface, so it doesn't really have a lot of surface fibers. It doesn't have a lot of loose fibers on the surface for the pen nib to catch. It's a really smooth kind of plate surface. So there's not, it kind of glides over it. It does make a weird little scratchy sound, but most of that, actually the sound is way worse now that I've switched to a wooden handle. Most of it is just the vibration basically getting amplified by the rest of the tool, because this is basically, it's hollow. And then wood is a really great amplification source. So it's basically like a little instrument where basically like a little musical instrument where it's taking that very small amount of vibration and it's magnifying it into a really big sound. But it's not actually, if you feel the paper, it's not even actually, you wouldn't be able to feel any of the lines. It's not tearing up the paper at all. But that was a really great question. If you use like a softer paper or a lighter weight paper or something that's a lot toothier, like something that's made to be drawn on with pencil or like a sketchbook page, it'll absolutely tear that up. But yeah, I noticed as soon as I switched from the classic plastic handle that the nibs normally come with to this big comfy wooden grip, that the sound got way louder. And I'm like, what the heck? And it took me a minute to figure out. And then I was like, oh yeah, duh, because I'm holding a giant amplifier. All right, so let's see. On to, you're so welcome. I love answering questions. I'm gonna move on to the next panel. I'm gonna do another straight edge. These little lines all over the place. Ooh. I need to do. Okay, in this panel, not just that, but also kind of just doing this freeform because I did not sketch it in ahead of time. But I need to get these pavers, the grid of pavers that they're walking on in here. So I'm using that perspective grid in there as a guideline. But I'm just kind of fudging this as I go, and hopefully I don't mess it up. As you can see, they get farther, the lines for the pavers get farther apart as we get closer to the viewer, closer to the picture plane, because that's how perspective works. Things that are closer to you look bigger. Things that are farther away look smaller. There we go. And let's see, down in this corner, look at how wonky that line is. That's not straight. That's not even close to straight. Oh my goodness. Sometimes I have to correct some really goofy drawing errors when I get to the inking stage. That's not even close. Amanda, what were you doing? Look at how crooked that is. Look at how crooked that was. Oh my. All right. Now coming back up here to this panel, I'm just going to be very careful of the lines that I just did. Not drag my hand through them if I can help it. And we got to do more stepping, more little dots. And more dots in the door frame. Once again, inside the door frame is just going to be black. It is dark, it is night, nothing is lit right now. This whole chapter is very dark. Okay, now I need to get my French curve out for that section. Let's see if I can find a good match on my French curve. I think I'm going to have to pivot this around. That looks pretty good. So the French curve, you just have to match pieces of the curve to the tool as well as you can, and then just kind of try to stitch your pieces together as well as you can. Which can be a little bit of a challenge. Okay, that should work. Inside. All right. That was pretty decent. Not like perfect, but decent enough that I can make the rest of it blend in. So really the best I can hope for. Get myself back up into frame here. And do more dots. More dots. 15-year-old internet humor. More dots. Dots inside the frame. So it's been pretty cool the last week or so. There's been an abundance of entertainment streaming online for free, which is pretty great. Lots of people are streaming stuff on social media. Musicians are streaming concerts, and operas are, like big major city operas are streaming their performances. It's pretty neat. Of course, I haven't had a lot of free time because my children are home from school, so I have to spend like half the day doing homeschool with them and then have to try to run away and get work done for considerably less than the normal amount of time that I get to in the day. But that's what we got to do for right now. Oh, yeah. And these word balloons, by the way, are blank right now. They're not masked. They're blank because they're actually supposed to be like indistinct talking. Like there's not going to be actual words in them. There's basically going to be those like kind of, there should be words here, but they don't quite look like words type scribbles where it's like you can't quite hear what's happening. And I'm visually making that clear that there are voices, but you can't hear what they're saying. I'm trying to look something up on another page in this sequence because I don't want to make a mistake. Okay. It's the direction that the texture on the ground is supposed to go. This way, which works pretty well for the composition of this page, actually, because then it's pushing your eye down toward this panel, and then this panel will push your eye over this way, which is also what the line of that building does, down to where you're supposed to go next. Little panel composition trick there. I say as if it's no big thing, and it wasn't like one of those mind-blowing revelations when I first heard that piece of advice many moons ago. When someone was like, hey, if you want to help guide the viewer's eye around the page, like have the textures that you're inking go in that direction. And I was like, what? Mind blown. More of these long hatching strokes as we fill in this area. All right, I do see there is a question. What do we got? Or a comment? Oh, yeah, a lot of free time. So yeah, my free time on their hands. Yeah, my husband's in ed tech, so he's home too. which is kind of nice because then it's not just me and the kids. He's at least around to help as well. But, you know, our kids are still really young. They're in pre-K and first grade, so even with two people, they're a handful. And their schooling is rather it's really simple stuff, but it requires a lot of effort to keep them focused on it. All right, I need to put these need to go this way to keep them in perspective. Had to think about that for a second. Oops, let me get up here where it's easier to see. Yeah, and right now our school is closed until the end of April. It is the current plan. So we're all stuck home for some time now. But we're figuring out a new routine. We're getting there. We're still kind of in the adjustment phase right now. Get some of those guidelines in there for me again. I'm gonna try to scoot this to a position where I will stay in frame on you guys, not wander out of it. All right. And I do like to have this bottom area just a little bit darker. Just have it kind of fade down to a darker color. Like maybe the bottom of the wall has a little bit more of a buildup of dirt and dust from the ground on it. Whoop, need a little more ink. All right, and down here, this is where you're going to see some of that blending. So I want to try to keep that transition between the values smooth. Let's slowly shift from being darker to lighter. That's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. I like that. There we go. All right, and then this different plane here. There we go. That'll be filled in black. That'll be filled in black. These little X's to remind myself that that's what's happening in the future there. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out for however much time you can. I'm still going to be going for another 30-ish minutes. I usually have these run for about an hour. Yep, but I've been on for about 30 minutes now, so If you're just jumping in at this point, there's still plenty more drawing to come. I'm just taking a sip of my coffee. Okay. So we got to do a little bit more of the tool work over here. Come on, don't be like that. Some of these straight lines over here. Oh, there's another window. Oh, sorry, I just bonked into my camera with my face. So where the camera is positioned is actually like right next to my head while I'm doing this. So I do, yeah, there we go again. I do occasionally nudge into it. I'm sorry. So we get all the little sides of these little windows. All right. That's pretty much all the tool work I need to do. Oh, I have a new comment. Hello, Gavin. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions or comments or anything while I'm working, feel free to leave them in the chat. I may not see them immediately since obviously I'm drawing, but I look up periodically to see what people are saying. Oh no, I do need to do one more set of lines that are going to go this way to get those pavers. But I'll do that in a second. First, and I used a French curve on this window up here, the arch on the top of that window. But these ones are so tiny, I'm just going to freehand them because the French curve would get in my way more than anything on them. Oh, but I'm going to freehand them better than that. Gosh, that was awful. Okay. I somehow missed that entire side of that window. Okay, so that's all gonna be filled in black. That's black. Goodness gracious. Okay. We're gonna do some more stippling. We gotta get that stone texture in here. Gotta get all of that little stone texture in here, all these little itty bitty dots. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, ba-doo. Trying not to totally zone out on you guys while I'm doing this. But it is very, like, soothing. All these little dots. Let's see. So obviously not much going on in the way of weekend plans right now. I do have a game online that I'll be streaming on Saturday. well, it's on my friend's channel, my buddy Doug, his channel, Victory Condition Gaming. We will be playing Tales from the Loop on Saturday night, 9 o'clock. I actually haven't played Tales from the Loop before. I've played a lot of the other Free League games, so those are always a lot of fun. Oh, there's a comment. Let me go see what that is. Let me get these little lines on these windows, and then I'll go see what that comment is before I continue making my little dots. Will blank balloons be filled with text, or are they left blanks? Oh, no, that's quite all right. No, so these ones, see, normally I already have all my text on the board. These blank ones are actually going to be filled with just kind of like the vaguely letter-looking scribbles to get the idea that she hears voices, but she doesn't know what they're saying. So those, I haven't done them yet, but they're not going to actually be filled with words. It's going to be those kind of like snatches of letters and syllables, scribbles of like, oh, I hear a voice, but I can't make out what they're saying. So that was actually a really good question. I do also very frequently when I'm doing these pages, because I ink, I pencil and then I do letters and then I ink. So whenever I'm inking these on here, the lettering is already on it. So if it's like a spoilery page, then I'll mask the word balloons. Like I'll put little pieces of paper over them so that you can't read what they say while I'm on camera. But this page, they're not talking about anything that's spoilery. Nothing. The only thing that's really happening on here is the physical action. Their conversation is kind of inconsequential. They're basically just having a conversation and get interrupted on this bottom tier. So because let's see, online we're up to page, right now page 6 is available for everyone to read online, and this is page 10. So this is about, the pages come out once a week, so this is about a month ahead. So depending on what's happening in the page that I'm working on online, sometimes it can be quite spoilery. Not so much this time, but I mean, unless you haven't read like anything lately. If you're several chapters behind, you might be like, what is happening? But I suppose that would be true of anything. But if you haven't read it at all, then you have no concept of who any of these people are or what their relationships are or what is happening. So it doesn't matter. So it can't really be a spoiler if you know absolutely nothing, I guess. All right, I need to do the other series of lines on these pavers before I get too much farther in here. So out with my straight edge again. And I'm going to try to follow my perspective grid and not get lost. All those little pink lines that you see in the background there are my perspective grid to try to give the illusion of realistic depth. Sorry, I lost my train of thought in the middle of speaking because I was trying to figure out where I'm supposed to put these lines. All right, so there's one. I don't worry about it being too perfect in the very far background, but once it gets a little closer in frame, I want it to be a little more precise of the staggered pavers. Make sure they're actually going every other like they're supposed to. Oh yeah, I was afraid of that. I'm not quite where I need to be on my grid. I'm just gonna have to make a little bit of an adjustment here. Should even itself out. I cut it early enough, it shouldn't cause too much trouble. Be here, here, here. One here. One here. Yeah, I foolishly did not do this in pencil first, so I'm having to go really slowly and really think about what I'm doing here, because I'm doing it all right now for the first time in ink, getting these pavers where they belong. So I don't want to mess it up, because then having to fix it would be a big pain. I should have just done it in pencil first. Saved myself the trouble, but I didn't. But there you go. Now you can see the pavers. I do silly stuff like that sometimes. Let's see. Only just started reading. Oh, that's quite all right. Hey, that gives you something to look forward to. You'll catch up eventually. I guarantee you can read it faster than I can draw it. So that's not even a question. Ooh, there is a hair with a piece of ink. Yeah, that's a cat hair. Thanks, cat. The cat doesn't even live in this building, and his hair ends up everywhere. All right, get some of those guidelines in here before I get all confused. Get that slightly darker lower edge going down here. There we go. And then we can get the rest of it put in. So we fill these spaces in. There we go. That wall is all done. Where are we at for time? 43 minutes. All right, so we've got a little over 15 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and get these little figures drawn in here. Normally my figures I do in brush on the next stage, but when they're this teensy weensy, I will do them in pen. I have a lot of control over a brush, but this would be pushing it. Oh, need more ink. That figure, that's Ronwin. There's Drake. Walking along and talking. He's just this cute little cat spot. This cute little spot of cat. Yeah, as of right now, I think that game on Saturday is my only big weekend plan. Oh, I'm recording a podcast doing a recording session for a podcast with a friend of mine online as well on Saturday afternoon. I'm not sure how much of that he's revealing publicly yet, so I'm not going to say anything, but once it's out, you'll all hear all about it. It sounded like a really fun concept, and he asked if I wanted to jump on for an episode, and I said, heck yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. There's the other building in the background. Now we need to do the ground. Shadow underneath her. Shadow underneath him. What's the podcast? It's called What is Fun? It's not out yet. He's just started recording episodes at this point. I'm not sure when the official launch date is, but he has started promoting it online as something that is coming soon. So I don't know if you can really find it yet, but I'll be sure to help promote it and talk about it too when it comes out. But that is the name of it. I don't know when I know he's planning on doing a big sprint on recording a bunch of material for it as soon as possible, and then just kind of working through editing and releasing episodes. Since, like a lot of us, he's not really working outside of the house much right now, so he's filling his time with fun creative projects. And just last night, I was interviewed by my friend Barney Smith of Story Comic for his Story Comic Presents web show and podcast. So we streamed it live on YouTube and Facebook, and then he's going to edit it down and release that on the Story Comic podcast sometime soon. Sometime this week, I think. But that was a really fun conversation. Barney's a really fun guy. His stuff is well worth listening to. Filling some more of this over here. I'm running low on ink in my pen. Almost there on this panel. It's getting close. Got 10-ish minutes left. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll finish the background, the nib inking on this one in the next 10 minutes. If not, I'll be awful close. I've had fun the last few weeks doing a single page over the course of 3 weeks for you guys. I'm obviously working on other pages between this. There's several other pages that are getting finished that you're not seeing. I'm not producing comic pages at one every 3 weeks. That would be not a very good productive pace for someone who tries to upload a new comic page every week. But I do like having this system right now of doing the different phases one a week. The only phase I skip for you guys is the lettering, which I don't know. I'm just concerned that lettering would be like super boring, but I guess if you think that it would be interesting, just let me know and maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that one of these times. I do have a video on my channel here that just goes through the hand lettering process and explains it. And it's pretty long. And that's an edited video where I cut a lot of stuff out. Kind of depends on the page too. Some pages lettering takes forever and some it goes pretty quickly. It depends on obviously how much text is on it. Heck, some pages like the page 7, I think it was the last one that I did from this chapter over a couple of videos, didn't have any dialogue on it. So obviously that makes the lettering phase not an issue then. Oh, I'm out of frame. Whoops. There we go. We're just making more dots. More dots. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of little details on the figures real quick. Oh, I see there's another question and or comment, so I'll look at that in a second. I'm just going to get these little tiny details like her necklace right there. A lot of times I'll pick out some of the details on Drake because he's a black cat, so all of that is going to get filled in, and I don't want to lose some of these lines. Let's see. I did see the one you already posted. Oh, cool. That's cool. I'm glad. Yeah, maybe I will do a lettering video at some point. I have to find a good candidate of a page for it, like one where it's not going to be, the text won't be too spoilery and will be like the right amount of text to fill a 1 hour video without ending up way too long or way too short or anything. Let's see, we're going to have this go in different directions. Yeah, that hand lettering video is like the most popular video on my channel. When I first made it, there weren't any hand lettering videos on YouTube. And I was like, how is this a thing that is not on here? Since then, someone has made a really nice one that's got way higher production values than mine. Mine is obviously just me and a webcam and I think a lav mic and, just okay lighting. Someone made a really nice like studio quality one. So, but hey, that's good. You can learn from me, you can learn from them. It doesn't matter as long as you are getting the information that you need. I'm glad I was able to fill in before that really swanky high-end one came on the scene. It's again trying to make a nice kind of gradient between the darker value and the lighter value on the wall here. Don't want a really abrupt transition. I want to make that as smooth as I can. Just varying the number of times I go over it. There we go. That's a pretty nice smooth transition. Looking pretty good. All right, we are in the last 4 minutes of video. So while I work on this last panel I'm going to tell you all the things. We got to do the YouTube things. If you've been enjoying hanging out with me and watching me draw, then you should hit the thumbs up button so that other people might see this video because it's cool and awesome and you like it. You can subscribe to this channel. I do these art streams about once a week. Not always on the same day or at the same time because life, but once a week. So the easiest way to make sure that you don't miss them is to subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell notification thingy, because that way it will, if you have your YouTube set up to do so, it'll ping your phone or ping your desktop or whatever else, give you a notification that I'm going live. And that way, if you're able to watch, you will not miss it. You can read the comic that I'm working on here, Age of Night, at ageofnight.com. That's AGEOFNIGHT. The whole thing is free online, but you can also buy copies of the comic on the Big Evil Empire website. You know the one. Starts with an A. You buy everything there anyway. But you can also request your local bookstore to order them. You can also get them on my favorite local bookstore, by the way, is the Briar Patch. They're local-ish to me. The Briar Patch out of Bangor, Maine. They always carry signed copies of my comic because I can get in my car and drive them to their store and drop them off, and then they will ship them to you. They're really awesome people. You can also get ebook copies there. You can get ebook copies at, if you have a One Bookshelf account, you can get them through DriveThruRPG, DriveThruComics, and DriveThruFiction. And those ones are PDF files instead of Mobi files if you have a preference. I know some people are persnickety about their file types. You can follow me on Twitter at Age of Night, just like the comic, all one word. You can follow me on Instagram at Amanda Call Art. That's just my name with the word art after it, all as one word. What else? Oh yeah, you can also, if you wanted to, support me on Patreon, and that's patreon.com/ageofnight. All the patrons get the comic. Oh, I'm out of frame again. Come on. All the patrons get to see comic pages a week early before they're up online for everyone to see. And higher level patrons get even more cool rewards. Get the details of this necklace in here. There we go. All right, and that's pretty much going to do it for today. Thanks, everybody, for coming and hanging out with me. I started with just pencils and letters on here, and now I've got 5 out of the 6 panels, all the background inking done. I only have a little bit to do on this last one here, and then it'll be on to brushwork. See, I've got one more question. I'll get really... Oh, my God. I threw my microphone on the floor. I'm sorry. Only way I can get a physical copy is through the site. Oh, yeah. So I haven't set up anything on Lulu. It's a whole other, every time you have to upload a book onto another platform, it's like a whole process. But I will look into it and try to get back to you about how that would go. But yeah. And if the big site is the only place you can get it, I mean, it's better than nothing. And really, I'm hosted on there. I publish my book through there just because of its ubiquity. Like that's why I'm on there. It's not like it's my favorite thing in the world, but it's what we got to do. So if that's the only way that it works, then that's what you got to do. All right. So thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out with me. And I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.